Hello, thank you for joining me. We're going to be looking at how to change equations from standard form, which we'll look at that in just a second, what that means and what that looks like, to slope-intercept form, which we have seen before and what we are used to. Okay, so what standard form says is standard form is when we have any sort of equation written in the form ax plus by equals c, like this, ax plus by equals c, in which a, b, and c are just numbers. Okay, so an example, and the first one we'll look at is the example 2x plus 2y equals 6. Okay, so this is just a very typical equation written in standard form. You can't look at it and say, okay, well, the slope is 2 because that's the number being multiplied by the, or this number being multiplied by the x, and then the y-intercept would be 6 because it's the number being added or subtracted. It's the number all by itself. You can't do that because the y has to be by itself. The output is being multiplied by 2 and it's being added to 2x. If the output's not by itself, it's not in slope-intercept form yet. Okay, so we can't just look at that and graph it. We gotta have a little bit more knowledge. So let's look at this down here. Okay, so I'm going to be graphing these on here from now on. I know, it's pretty cool. I'm going to graph it on here just because it's a little bit easier. So we're going to have this equation, and the directions are just going to say graph it. Okay, so we've got to graph that equation right there. Well, we're going to look at two different ways of doing this. All right, I'm going to show y'all. If you've seen the other video on the table method about how to solve these, you've seen this before. But I want to do the table method first, and then I'll show you another useful way that we could graph this equation. So there's two ways. I could make the argument both are. Kids find these pretty difficult both ways. Okay, so I'm not going to say one's easier than the other. You're going to be looking for something to use the table method. You'll be looking for something to the other method, putting it into slope-intercept form. If it just says graph and you have this equation here, I would use the table method. All right, and what you're doing using the table method, remember, you only need two ordered pairs to make a line. We're going to get just two ordered pairs, all right? And the two easiest numbers we could use, well, we could use 0, and we could also use 0. And what that means is we're going to plug a 0 in for x, and we're going to see what y is, okay? So whatever the output value is here, we'd have our first ordered pair. So when we plug 0 in for x, you'd solve for y. And then we're going to plug 0 in for y, and we're going to solve for x. And I know that's a different thing to understand because we haven't done that yet, but all you're doing is you're figuring out now the x-intercept. You're figuring out when it's crossing the x-axis. When it crosses the y-axis, that's when x is 0. So when it crosses the x-axis, that's when y is 0. This is what that looks like. When we put in, oh, it's not letting me get a different color here. When we put in a number for when we put a number in for x, in this case it's going to be 0. We'd be saying 2 times 0 plus 2y is equal to 6. Well, 2 times 0, that just cancels out at 0. And you have now are left with 2y equals 6. All right? Or positive 2y equals 6. Well, 2 times which number would give you 6? This would be 2 times 3 would give you 6. So when my input is 0 for my x, my output would be 3. So my first order pair would be at 0, 3. Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to plug 0 in for y. So what this is saying is what is the input if the output was 0? It's just like we're going backwards, all right? But look, what I like to do is just say cover up the x term, like cover that up, and then you're left with 2y equals 6. Well, what we're going to do now is we're going to put a 0 in for y, and that's going to go away. The 2y is going to go away. So you're left with 2x equals 6. Well, 2 times what gives you 6? Again, that's going to be 3. So this is a very basic question, okay? I won't say simple, but it's just a very basic question. So now we have our two ordered pairs. It's 0, 3 and 3, 0. So I'm going to just go over here to graph this. 0, 3 is going to be right here. And then 3, 0, you're going to go to the right 3 and then up and down 0. And there are your two ordered pairs. And then you just put a line through those, okay? So I'm going to put my line here. And there we go. That's your line, okay? If we were to put that equation into slope-intercept form, we would get the exact same thing. All right, I'm going to show you how to do that how to put it in a slope-intercept form next. All right, so like that is one method using the table. You're going to plug a 0 in for x, you're going to plug a 0 in for y, and it has its pros and cons. It's got some benefits and it's got some things that make it a little bit harder as the equations get more different. Okay, so let's take the same equation. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Okay, I'm just going to start over again. Okay, yeah, there we go. That's what I'm looking for. Okay. All right, so we're going to take that same equation, 2x plus 2y equals 6, and we are going to put it in now into what we call slope-intercept form. So we're used to seeing this. We're used to seeing y equals mx plus b, in which the y is by itself, the output value is by itself. So our ultimate goal is we want it to say y equals. So that's what it will look like. Since the y is on the left right here, it's going to stay on the left. All right. What we are going to do is we need to get the y all by itself. So we need to get what's furthest away from the y on the other side of the equation. All right. So the furthest thing away from the y is this 2x, all right? So how we get 2x onto the other side is we are adding 2x. We are going to subtract 2x from the side. And I like to write it out here to the side. Why would I write it out here to the side, you might say? Why don't you write it right underneath that 6? Well, those are not like terms. You can't combine 6 and negative 2x to get 4x. It doesn't work like that. Those are two terms that are not like terms, so you can't combine them. You would just put them next to each other, all right, and keep the sign in front the same. Negative, or 2x minus 2x on the left-hand side here, 2x minus 2x, that's going to cancel out. This gives you 0. That's what we wanted to happen. You know, like we don't want that. We will just want the y by itself. So we're one step closer towards achieving that. So now we just have 2y equals. We could put 6 minus 2x, but if you remember in slope-intercept form, we like the x value to be in the front, or the x term to be in the front. We want the negative 2x to be in the front, and since that's a positive 6 and it's staying on the right-hand side, we're going to put plus 6. So it would be negative 2x plus 6. All we've done is we took this 2x that was on the left-hand side and we put it on the right-hand side and we put it in the front of that 6. That's all we've done. All right, we made it negative because when you change the side, you change the sign. All right, now here's the thing that gets little kids tripped up. We're going to divide this side by 2 because that says 2 times y, right? So we're going to divide this side by 2. But what you do to one side, you got to do the other side, yeah? And we are going to divide this entire side by 2. We're going to divide negative 2x by 2, and we're going to divide 6 by 2. And you can multiply and divide terms that are not the same, but you just can't add or subtract them, all right? You can't, like by combining them, I mean, like 6 minus 2x is not 4x, but you can say negative 2x divided by 2 because you are multiplying, right there you're dividing, all right? So you're going to say negative 2 divided by 2. That would give you negative 1. We're just going to leave it like that. We usually don't write that in front of our variable. But negative 2x divided by 2 would give you negative 1x. And then positive 6 divided by 2 would give us positive 3. And that's exactly what we wanted to happen, you know. The y-intercept here would be 3. So the m value would be negative 1 over 1. And the b value would be 3. So you are now starting at 3, which is the y-intercept. Oh, let's see here. And then you would go down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, down 1 over, and you see it makes that same line. So it's like we graphed both of those, that equation 2 different ways, and it gave us the same line. All right, we're going to look at another example next. Y'all stay with me. Look at the next example because there's pros and cons to both of these, and I'm going to show you what that is in the next video, okay? So y'all check out part 2.